Hello, welcome to Horror Cult Trash Over, the show that discusses all the masterpieces and trash pieces of genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And that is the last time you're going to be hearing that.
It is. It is. Let's get the news out of the way first.
Yes. Welcome to the funeral of Horror Cult Trash Over.
Yeah, technically. Unless that's not completely obvious to everyone. This will be the last episode of Horror Cult Trash Over.
In its current format.
Yes.
And name. Technically, we're just resurrecting it under a different name. And a completely new format. Which won't be it'll be film specific, but it won't be specifically one film going scene for scene anymore. Instead, we will be discussing a variety of stuff. We'll be discussing films new and old, certain ones having a longer discussion than others, TV shows, maybe some music, maybe even the local gossip of Manchester. Who knows?
Maybe, yes.
It's going to be a lot more laid back, hopefully even more fun, and we're just going to be talking about what we enjoy talking about, and hopefully you'll still listen.
We're hopeful. So I think the general idea that we had, and keep it 100, very millennial thing for me to say, but to keep it 100, the conversation was there. We finished Friday the 13th now, haven't we? And we finished Halloween, and we've covered Nightmare on Elm Street. We've done all of that. It's the end of the year, end of 2024. We've been doing this for 5 years, and we thought maybe it's time for a little shake-up, something a little different, something a little more broad, something where we can incorporate all of our interests, because, you know, we watch a hell of a lot of films. If you follow either of us on Letterboxd, as I hope you do, you know that we watch a hell of a lot of films, and we enjoy discussing films, so there's going to be a hell of a lot more of that.
Yeah, but not horror specific.
Not horror specific. We watch a lot of horror. We enjoy horror films, but it's going to be a little more broad,
yes,
isn't it? Which is good.
Yes, it's going to be nerdy and it's going to be very gay. So
yes,
that's the reason.
You'll barely notice the difference.
Yes, still our voices. But yes, so that's all we can tell you for now. We haven't got the name together just yet, but episode schedules and the new name will be announced within the new year. You can expect to hear back from us at some time within the next month. Hopefully.
In 2025.
Yes. More updates to come. But of course, we couldn't end a podcast without recording what is always our final? Like, technically, that's also true. What's always my personal favourite to record of the year.
Yeah.
It is the 20 best horror films of 2024. Because there's two of us, technically you're getting 40. But not really, because a lot of them are going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, this is... We have similar taste. Not exactly the same taste, but I suspect we're going to agree on a lot of these.
Yes. And because it is essentially a What's New with Chris and Gary year in review, there won't be a What's New with Chris and Gary week in review like we normally do. Mm-hmm. And if you want more of that, then again, the new format is pretty much going to be that for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But no, so we're going to be getting straight to it. And as always, the rules are they have to be films released in the UK in 2024. And I would say and festival films, but we actually haven't been to one that we haven't run ourselves this year.
Yeah, so there aren't any gasp films included, is there?
No.
So we obviously we want to maybe keep that a little separate to a certain degree, and not just have the whole 20 filled with the incredible films that we show at Gasp Horror Film Festival.
And obviously these opinions are our own opinions, and that's the fun of film criticism online, is that we can all have our own opinions and no one's ever shitty to anyone about it.
Yes, because I'm always right. So
exactly.
What's the point in disagreeing when I'm always correct?
So we are going to be kicking things off with the 2024 Best Horror Films Awards Round 1. As always, we have the
Oh my Christmas God
award for Biggest Horror Surprise of the Year. What is yours?
Mine is a film that we watched fairly recently.
Oh.
And it's Slay.
Oh, okay.
Because number one...
Because it's Tubi original.
Tubi original. Apparently we have Tubi in the UK now, so that was a nice little surprise. But yes, it's a Tubi original, and they don't have the best... what's the word I'm looking for?
Reputation.
Reputation, of course. Thank you, Taylor. The best reputation. And also... films starring drag queens, particularly Rue girls, haven't exactly set the world on fire, have they?
No.
I'm thinking, what was that Christmas film that was like really bad?
Oh, The Bitch Who Stole Christmas.
The Bitch Who Stole Christmas. So they haven't...
There was A Star Is Born, though.
Yeah, yes. But Slay really surprised me.
Yeah.
It was fun, it was funny, and
we can't say much more about it because it might make an appearance later.
It might make an appearance later.
Mine is a film that had absolutely no right being as good as it was. A film that, let's face it, when we all heard about it, the expectations were low. It is The First Omen. Because there's no reason as to why a new Omen film, a prequel nonetheless, should have been that good.
That is very true. Yes, I agree with that. There were a few surprises this year, to be fair.
There were.
But yes, that was very, very, very surprising how good that was.
Next up, the
Oh my Christmas God
award for biggest surprise of the year across all genres. And mine is, again, a prequel that should never have been as good as it was, Transformers 1.
Oh, yes.
I mean, come on. Like, we had Bumblebee, that was a good film. But apart from that, the Michael Bay films have been absolutely shocking. I gave up with them. And this just comes along and shows that to make a masterpiece of a Transformers film, you've got to be animated.
We were very close to just not watching it. And I grew up on Transformers, but I never watched any of the Michael Bay films. You grew up on the Michael Bay films.
I did.
So we were both cautious about Transformers 1. And it got good reviews. The trailer made it sound awful. Like, really just cheesy Marvel rip-off crap.
Yeah.
But we watched it, and it was very akin to the 80s film, which I love, which I have a great affinity for. So yeah, very surprised. Yes. I went different. I went with Monkey Man.
Okay.
I was very surprised at how much I really genuinely enjoyed Monkey Man.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a throwaway John Wick light, you know? I thought it was just going to be like, yeah, that was fine. But it had a lot of heart to it. It was very interesting. The action was fantastic. Really, really hope that it gets a sequel because I really fucking enjoyed that film and I didn't think I was going to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Next up, we have the
Garbage Day
award for biggest horror disappointment of the year. And what is yours?
Mine is Cuckoo.
Yes.
Mine is Cuckoo. I know it's one of those where it's like, oh, well, everyone told me it was going to be good and I didn't like it. But that is exactly how it went.
Yeah.
I assume everyone that I kind of, follow and I take an interest in their opinions because we tend to agree on things, said how great Cuckoo was, and I didn't think it was very good.
No, it was boring.
I did think it was dull. Think it was dull. Yeah, it was such a shame because I had quite high expectations for it.
Yeah, sadly, it is up there for me, but mine has to go to The Strangers Chapter 1, yes. Which you were fortunate enough not to see.
Skipped that one.
I mean, the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 making a new Strangers trilogy. There's no reason to why this shouldn't have been good, but it is lazy. It doesn't know what it is, when it's set, or what it's trying to do. Honestly, just truly, truly abysmal, miserable stuff. So boring. It's meant to be a prequel, question mark, but there's so many things that contradict that, and it's basically just a remake of The Strangers, but with less interesting characters and a less talented cast. Really, like, not even intense in the slightest. The first film is really, it's terrifying, but this doesn't even come close to that. Really, really just a bag of dog shit. Just, yeah, I will not be seated for chapters 2 and 3.
It seems like I dodged a bullet with that.
You did. How about the
Garbage Day!
award for biggest disappointment of the year across all genres? We may have the same.
It's exactly the same. I know it's exactly, and if it's not, you're wrong. It's Drive Away Dolls.
It's Drive Away Dolls.
It's Drive Away Dolls. I was so excited for that film.
Yeah.
Really, just the cast, the queerness, the trailer made it look great. I was like, I'm so ready for this. This is going to be a fantastic film.
It's made by a fucking Coen brother. There's no reason why it shouldn't have been good.
Yeah, and you know, co-directed with his wife, so female directed. And I thought it was awful. I really genuinely thought it was a really bad film.
It's just constant like, oh, ain't dildo's funny.
Yeah. Its humour was based solely on the fact of, do you find double enders funny or not?
Yeah.
And I don't. Not in that. Yeah, maybe in the right circumstance, it could get a giggle out of me, but not when it's slapping you around the face.
But like vicious lesbian stereotypes as well, and just really just shit.
It was just one note. It was just one note with it all, and it had such promise.
It did.
I was sadly disappointed.
It did. We saw that trailer so many fucking times.
Oh, we did. Yeah, but each time we were like, I'm so looking forward to watching this.
Yeah.
/ fed up of seeing the trailer, but
yeah.
You know.
Thelma and Louise, where they were actually allowed to be lesbians, and they just let us down.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, Margaret Qualley fully redeemed herself twice this year. One is going to be an honourable mention, and one is certainly in the top 20. So good for her. The
Cheese and pickle. Basic.
award for biggest basic bitch of the year within the horror genre. I've gone with something that is a horror film. I don't want to hear it's not a horror film. It's originated from a horror film. It's a monster film. It's a creature feature. It's big monsters fighting each other and the human race. It's Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire.
Okay, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, huge monsters destroying the city. I mean, that's horrifying. That is horror.
It's a horror. Godzilla is a horror franchise,
And it was very basic.
It was horrifying how basic it was. I wouldn't hear any bad words about Mini Kong. He's innocent. He can do no wrong. The scene where he gets slapped around, used as a weapon, fantastic. Everything else, seriously. Going back to the horror disappointment of Cuckoo, what is going on with poor Dan Stevens?
He's having a tough,
He was in
he's
both.
having a tough year, isn't he?
Like his best film of the year is Abigail, and that was good, but
That was a little cheese and pickle.
it's please tell. Is that your pick?
No,
Oh
no,
my god.
no.
I was gonna say poor Dan Stevens. But yeah, no, it's just fucking shit. Just really trying its best to be the MCU, and it's like, come on, guys, you have 2 franchises here, and one that you've built yourself that's built itself on ideas that have been going around for decades. Why are you trying to copy the MCU? Like, come on, stop.
Did it make Minnie?
I think it made, but there's another one. But yeah, so disappointing. But it's basic as fuck.
Yeah, I think ultimately, as the year as a whole, it's actually been a good year for horror films.
It has.
So we dissed Abigail slightly then, but I still rate it fairly highly.
I really enjoyed
mean,
Abigail.
it did, you know, we all like a cheese and pickle sandwich every so often.
Yes.
In the right, with a nice bread. and a nice cheddar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Branston. You know, it can be nice. So I went with a film that I didn't like, Strange Darling,
Okay.
because I thought
Interesting.
what I didn't like about it was the cheese and pickle aspects. Where
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of basic, and I mean it was kind of dull as well.
Yeah.
And I thought it was not very clever, but thought it was clever. Yeah, it's the kind of stuff that I really don't like. I wasn't a fan at all
No.
of Strange Darling. Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I'm kind of struggling to remember the film.
It was a Tarantino ripoff.
It was, but I distinctly remember. We watch a lot of films, so sometimes it's difficult. And I was certainly not going to rewatch it again for a 2-minute section on this podcast. But I distinctly remember the 35mm at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, oh. And I distinctly remember it just kind of feeling same-ish.
Yeah.
Not like I'd seen it all before, and it tried to do something clever with it, but it felt
Iffy.
Is misogynistic
It was
the word
it was
I'm
a bit
looking
it
for?
felt misogynistic.
Or sort of, yeah.
But we're probably going to get hunted down for this because everyone loved it.
I need to start writing reviews so I can remember these cheese and pickle films. But yes, but ultimately, you know, it's actually been a decent year
has
for
been.
horror films. So I don't want to. Yeah. That being said,
Well,
there's no cheese and pickle.
but this isn't horror. I mean,
Cheese and pickle. Basic.
award for biggest basic bitch of the year across all genres. For me, maybe for you, it's Boy Kills World.
It's Boy Kills World.
Jesus Christ.
Oh,
This we only watched because we had time to kill.
Yeah.
We had time between two films, nothing else to do, and we were right next to the cinema, so we were like, okay, let's see what's on. We'll just go see anything. And sadly, we went to see this, and it was painful.
well, I think it's one of those films that what maybe pushed us to watch it
Also, we had nothing else to do.
was we had nothing else to do, but to choose this one over what else we could have done, or you know, looking back, I'd rather have, you know, sat in a park with a cheese and pickle sandwich. But I think I'm struggling. Jessica Roth. I mean, we like her.
Yeah, of course.
We like Bill Skarsgård. So we were hopeful that it was going to be decent, but it made me cringe. Like, really made me
That film
cringe.
could have been a cheese and ham sandwich if it didn't have that voiceover. That voiceover is what tipped it over the edge for me.
Yeah.
And it was constant.
The joke wore thin.
It
very
was so
quickly.
boring. The constant, oh, well, look, that happened. Oh, but there's loads of blood, so it's not like Marvel because this is not for kids. Oh, it's genuinely like, my toes were curling for a lot of the runtime.
Definitely.
It was so basic. Basic, boring. Yeah, forgettable. Absolutely forgettable. The only thing I can remember is that voiceover. Trash the Piece of the Year, on the other hand, is a film that's certainly not forgettable. Wait, you did agree, didn't you? Boy Kills World.
Yes, of course. Yes.
The Trash Piece of the Year is a film that isn't a cheese and pickle sandwich. It isn't boring. It isn't forgettable. It's a film that I'm certain I will revisit many times in the future because it brings me great happiness. And all of the people who took these silly little films so seriously, these films that should never have been made because the first one was fucking ridiculous. It was so shit. But somehow Sony kept getting funding to keep this Sony-verse going. And they released Morbius, they released the Venom trilogy, they recently released Kraven the Hunter, in which apparently a character says, my grandma died and then I never saw her again. Honestly, I'm literally scratching my head. It's a mystery as to how the Sonyverse has been going this long. But amongst all of that shit, there is a gem. There is a saviour, and her web ties us all together. It's Madam Web.
I completely agree.
truly a gem. An absolute disaster of a film.
In every way, the marketing, disaster. Dakota Johnson's involvement in the film, disaster.
Yeah.
The fact that the rest of the cast weren't really sure what was going on, disaster.
Yeah.
But in the most entertaining and brilliant way.
Mm-hmm.
It's
camp.
It's camp. It's high camp.
So camp.
It's what a trash to piece is about.
Yeah.
It's so bad, it's good.
Yeah.
But in every single way. So it elevates it so much higher because we were well aware of everything that was going on off screen as well.
Yeah.
Dakota Johnson shitting on it at every opportunity possible. And the producers getting mad at her despite it actually being the sole reason it made any money whatsoever. It's because people were determined to watch this film that Dakota Johnson had disowned.
It's hilarious. It's so fucking funny. The director directs it like she's making a fucking Final Destination film. Everyone in it thinks they're in the MCU, but there's not even any connection. They're constantly scared to make any reference to Spider-Man, despite having Uncle Ben as a main character in the fucking film. The villain is dubbed like an old martial arts film.
That was,
honestly,
shocking.
Wild. It's absolutely wild. And if anyone tells you it's boring, they're fucking lying to you. This is an absolute blast, and I highly recommend that you go out and watch this film. Like, no matter what your preferences in genre, if you like camp, then just go and watch it.
Yeah.
Really great. Madam Web starring Angie K. Really.
Angie K.
Just phenomenal stuff. Really entertaining. Best podcast film of the year?
This was really tough.
I thought it would be.
This was incredibly tough for me. I did go with All About Eve.
Yeah.
In the end, because it's one of my all-time favourites. But it was really close. What did you go for?
I went with All Other Strangers.
There
Sorry.
you go. 2 alls.
But yes. Not saying any more about that for now. It will get another mention later on. Worst podcast film of the year, for me, poor Jessica Roth. You're still innocent in my books, but get a better agent. It's Valley Girl remake. Fucking piece of shit film. I can't believe I sat through that again. It makes me so angry.
Well, you deserved it because you made me sit through Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension.
Oh, wow, that's harsh. Compared to Valley Girl.
Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension is real bottom of the barrel. I didn't want to be fair, I didn't want to be cheese and pickle about it and go with Jason Takes Manhattan because I can see that people have heard enough. People know that I hate that film. But yeah, The Ghost Dimension, I fucking hate that film.
And there we go. Now that the first lot of awards are out of the way, let's begin. Horror Cult Trashover's 20 best horror films of 2024. In at number 20, let's go alphabetically. What's yours?
Oh, alphabetically. And at number 20
Chris
for
before
me,
Gary, not alphabetically in the films.
I was going to say, I was like, that goes against the point of having a ranked list. In at number 20 is Slay.
And it is for me as well.
Yes. Like I said earlier, really surprised me how much fun this film was. There was a whole lot of heart to it. There was the queens that were acting in it did a really great job. The queens that I really enjoyed on the show as well, and I think that helps too. Although I have the utmost respect for anyone who goes out there and does their art the way that, the drag queens on Drag Race do, So they're all winners in my book. But 4 of my favourites, really enjoyed it, loved the energy, loved how it was pretty much from dusk till drag.
That's the thing. This is a premise that's been done so many times before. I mean, it's very much Assault on Precinct 13 from Dusk Till Dawn. VFW was another film that did it, and You know, it's nothing. It's not exactly an original thing, but doing it with drag queens just makes for such a fun time, and it makes sense. It's so funny. You know, it's so much of what a queer vampire horror comedy should be. It surprises me that there's 2 vampire films in this top 20 for me. I mean, they could get to the point where there's so many of them that it's hard to make any standout ones, but this is absolutely a standout, and it has the best use of WAP by Cardi B you'll ever see in any film.
One thing I have to say is I did feel like a lot of the budget went on
The song choices.
rather than because it's not a spoiler to say that there are pretty much no practical effects.
There are some, and this is also strange, there are some in there, and it looks good when they use them.
Yeah, but when they don't, it looks
the
like a
CGI
2B original.
Isn't great. But again, for a 2B original,
Yeah.
you know, this is really, really great. It's so entertaining.
fun and it's not heavy, but it does say a little something on being queer in a small community, and it's just it's one of those films that makes you like, oh, you know, being gay is fucking great sometimes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, in at number 19 is...
For me?
Yeah.
Am I going first
Yeah.
on all of these?
Yep.
Okay. So just so we're on the same boat. Terrifier 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah?
Wow. I didn't make it to my top 20, but it
No.
is an honourable
Oh,
mention.
wow.
To talk about why you liked it.
This probably means I've missed a big film. But yeah, no, Terrifier 3. I didn't enjoy the first one. Finally watched the second one before, because everyone said it was great. You watched the second one without me.
Yeah.
And you said, actually, that's pretty decent. So then watched that before watching the third one. And it's silly, gory, schlocky horror. I will say 2 and 3, far too long.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just a fun film. Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say.
And a bonus is that it's set at Christmas.
Yes, yeah.
Um,
Although we watched it way before Christmas, didn't we?
We did. Yeah, weird that they wanted to capitalise on Halloween rather than Christmas for that one. But they did do a re-release, though.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was very nearly in my top 20. It was just knocked out by Slay. But it's great. I love the practical effects. Art the Clown is becoming, you know, a modern horror icon. He gets a little more camp with each one. A bit of Clint Howard in there.
Yeah.
With Tom Savini in there. It's, you know, the film's made by horror fans for horror fans, and you can't really go wrong with that anymore.
Yeah, I just don't. I you know, no one's gonna write essays on Terrifier 3. No one's gonna go into great detail about what it says about the humanity or anything like that. What they're gonna say is, wow, that was a really fun horror film. That was gory. That was silly. That was over the top.
Yeah.
Nice one. It was really fucking long, but
Yeah.
if that was made in the 80s, it would have been an hour and a half, and I probably
Yes.
would have given it 5 stars. So,
Yeah.
yes,
But still, we'll be seated for Terrifier 4.
absolutely.
19 for me, it's Night Bitch.
Oh, okay.
So, Night Bitch is an adaptation of a novel that I really want to read. And Mary Haller does a really great job here in creating something that says so much about feminist rage and the exhausting nature of societal norms that people feel obliged to follow, particularly when you're a woman and when you're a mother. And this film just really captures that in such a clever way that helps it transcend past that and allows it to be relatable from many different points of view.
Yeah, and it's not a horror. Annoyingly, not a horror on Letterboxd.
No.
Is it?
But it is on IMDb.
It is on
IMDb,
IMDb,
yeah.
and it is a horror film.
It's a creature feature.
It's absolutely. I mean, the whole premise is she's turning into a dog.
Yeah.
I thought it was so expertly acted and
Yes.
directed and written. I found it incredibly relatable. I found it. This is a film that you could write an essay on.
Yeah.
and the way it talks about our position in the world. You know, what are we here for? Which is very heavy, but is actually kind of hilariously funny at times. It's a black comedy, I feel, at times too. And do I tell you where I put it? It was definitely in my top 20.
When you get to it.
When I get to it, okay.
But no, carry on talking about it now. With all these films, we'll talk about them when one of us mentions them
Yeah,
first.
no, of course. A bit, yeah, no, that's how I feel about it.
No, absolutely. It's nice to see Jessica Harper in a big screen, on a big screen.
And I really want that painting of her.
Yes, that cunty painting of her. But yeah.
But I think Amy Adams was
Adams is
fantastic.
phenomenal.
She's
really
always
hope...
fantastic. She was even probably the best thing about Cruel Intentions too.
Yeah, I mean, at a push... There wasn't a lot of good things about that, but she's definitely the best thing about this, and I really hope to see her continue this streak of being nominated during awards season. And it has a fucking...
She always does.
No, that was a good interruption there.
Why?
I just said it has a fucking cock.
Oh, does it?
Thank you. What I was going to say is... that's a fucking Cocteau Twins needle drop. And... I mean, that gets extra points from me.
True. But she's always nominated. Poor Amy Adams. She needs to fucking win one once in a while.
It's true.
But I don't think she's going to win for this. So,
No.
Sadly.
Poor Amy Adams being nominated the same year as Demi Moore.
Yeah. That might be a good topic of conversation in the new podcast, so I'm not going to spoil that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, up next in number 18.
Number 18 is Your Monster.
Nice.
Yeah, really fun. Well, it's a comedy, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of heartwarming. A take on Beauty and the Beast, I feel. Do you think that's what
I'd
it was
say so.
going for? A little Frankenstein as well. But yeah, I thought it was a really enjoyable film. I loved Melissa Barrera's central performance. I thought she was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, another film about feminine rage. Again, we have yet another year where, unsurprisingly, women and queer people are making phenomenal films. And this is no exception. It is a film about feminine rage, about trauma, depression, and finding your voice. And it does that in the Beauty and the Beast style story, with many great allegories and some really funny comedy. And yeah, some great horror elements as well. It's just a really enjoyable film. Like, I can imagine putting this on as a comfort watch. It's just a really fun film to sit through, despite having some really bleak moments. It doesn't shy away from being a bleak film. You know, it is a horror film. It is a film about real people, but with a bit of fantasy added in, and it does it so well. It's camp. It incorporates some great musical numbers into it. Melissa Barrera's singing voice. I mean, it isn't my biggest gasp of the year, but it could have been. Like, I mean, where did that come from?
Yeah. I was shocked. I actually didn't think it was her. Yeah. So, all respect to Melissa Barrera for surprising me. But yeah, I thought the central character was so not relatable, but we could be very empathetic towards her, and it could, I think, despite some of the subject matter, I don't think it's a spoiler to say it's not, is it?
What?
She had cancer.
Yeah, no, that's like revealed in the first scene.
Yeah. So yeah, to for what is quite a heavy subject matter, I think it could be maybe a comfort watch for some people. But, our kind of people, it could be a comfort watch. Yeah.
Melissa Barrera supremacy in this podcast, and good on her for accepting such a great role.
Yes.
And again, great in Abigail.
Yes.
Not the only star of Abigail we're going to be talking about on this list, but in at number 18 for me, it might be the film that's not on your list.
Oh.
It's In a Violent Nature.
Okay.
Is it on your...
It is on my list.
Okay, good. I'm glad it is, because really, we as a society, we as horror fans, we as cinephiles, we weren't kind enough to this film. Like, so many people bashed the fuck out of this film.
Did they really?
They really did. I mean, on Letterboxd, it's currently on a 2.8. And it's like, I kind of get it. I get that it's a challenge to stay awake through because it is slasher ASMR.
Yes, that's
it is
true.
Jason Takes ASMR. But guys, this is such a fucking good slasher film. Like, and slasher is obviously my favourite subgenre. So I'm always excited to see new slasher films. And maybe I'm a little biased because I'm always willing to give them a chance, no matter what they are, no matter if they look shit or whatever. But this, I thought, looked good and it fully delivered. Really fucking brutal kills. Hilarious characters, hilariously over the top and unlikable characters who are just there to be fucking butchered. It's not trying to say anything. There are some queer characters here, which is great, but they're just there to be killed in nasty, inventive ways. And that's absolutely what happens here with some really phenomenal practical effects. I mean, there's one in particular that, if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. This one kill is just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
It's a film of peaks and troughs. So there are moments, and okay, it's not for everyone.
Well, yeah, let's just say
there are moments that are quite slow.
Let's say what the unique selling point is. This entire thing is from the killer's point of view.
Yes.
This entire film is the killer comes back to life, and you watch him going about his day.
Yeah.
Which involves a lot of walking.
Yeah, and it's almost meta at times as well, but it's from his point of view, and it goes quite slow.
Yeah.
But I feel like it works for me because I am someone who has maybe accused slow films of being a bit boring in the past. Mm-hmm. But because the highs are so high, like when the kills happen, they're so over the top, so ridiculous, so memorable. Because of that, it helps you to stay invested because you're waiting for the next one.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're kind of, it's peaks and troughs. So you get these real highs of adrenaline, and then it plummets back down, and you're like, oh, okay. And then before you know it, it's like whoosh again. And I think that's great. And I can't think of many other films that do that successfully. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but it's also not the longest film on the planet, is it?
No.
What are we looking at here? Oh, 94 minutes.
Yeah.
So a nice,
All
normal 94 minutes. That's all it needs to be. It's pure horror film.
Yeah.
But what you don't get in between is boring teens talking boring shit.
Yeah. You get a really cool fucking horror villain, and you don't need to know the other characters that much. It looks beautiful because of all the big open scenery, and it swaps a score for ambient noise, and it's so unique. But watch it with a coffee.
Yeah.
Because those scenes, it's going to be a jump scare when something does happen.
Yeah. And I completely agree why it's not for everyone, but it was for us.
Yeah.
So, yes, thoroughly enjoyed that.
And in at number 17 for Chris is
Late Night with the Devil.
Oh.
Love the premise.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like Network. So I love that 70s TV aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I just thought it did something different with the found footage genre.
Yeah.
I feel like it's. Do you remember that? What was that thing? Oh, the American version of Ghostwatch.
KRP
in Cincinnati, something like that. Which we were quite disappointed in. We thought it was a little dull. I feel like this is a proper American version of Ghostwatch.
It absolutely is.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great central performance. I thought it was creepy when it needed to be. Loved the aesthetic. It was campy when it needed to be. Just thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah. Last year we spoke to you about Give Me Pity and Haunted Ulster Live.
Yeah.
Two other films that had that sort of Ghostwatch format. This is up there as one of the best. It's so funny. but has some really effective horror in there as well. You know, it wears its influences on its sleeve, but that's okay. It works. It works. The performances are good and convincing enough. It really fully commits to its TV show setting in the 70s, and yeah, it's just, as a Ghostwatch fan, this is an absolute blast for me. It's, yeah, and modern possession films, you know, they're all very samey, especially when it involves creepy little girls. But you know, as we all know, the Victorian ghost child look has been done many times already. But this doesn't do that. It does something different with it. And Ingrid Torelli, who plays the little girl, it's so self-aware when it comes to her performance and her staring into the camera and her interactions with the rest of the cast. She really adds to the horror comedy of it. It's so good. And some great practical effects as well. One scene in particular was really jarring. I really didn't see it coming, and I'm surprised we're not talking about it more. But really, one of many highlights of this year was Late Night with the Devil. Seeing that in the cinema without knowing anything about it was fantastic.
Do you think seeing it in the cinema is a different experience to seeing it on TV?
Well,
we didn't watch it on TV, but do you think because it's a TV premise, because the whole idea, it's like watching Ghostwatch.
Yeah.
You've seen Ghostwatch on the big screen.
Yeah,
well, we've seen Ghostwatch on the big screen. Do you think it takes away from it to see it on the big screen when it's meant to be a found footage TV program?
Not really. Especially if you watch these with good audiences. Like, we had a really good audience for Late Night with the Devil, and we had a really good audience for Ghostwatch. But I think, and obviously, Second Sight sent us a copy, so we'll have to find out one day. Watching it at home could just make it even better.
I suppose TVs now aren't the same. So we have, and not to impress everyone or invite anyone to come and rob us, but we do have a 70-inch television.
Yeah. So
I suppose it's not quite the same aesthetic as watching your TV in 1977. Yeah. So yeah, I suppose that's kind of lost in translation anyway.
But yes, my number 17
yes
is Immaculate.
Ooh,
one of two nun films making an appearance on this list this year, which is great. I like how we see certain trends, and this year it's been nun films. There's been some good vampire films. Last year it was a lot of sequels.
Yes,
we had a lot of sequels on our list, but this year not so much. There's some. Actually, there's a fair few now. I'm looking at the rest of my list. But either way, Immaculate is great. Sydney Sweeney, star of Madam Web, is so fucking good in this film. It has so many nods to Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, The Omen, The Devils. All the right influences are in place, and it's just it feels like a 70s Italian horror film. And yeah, Sydney Sweeney is she's fully on board with how over the top and ridiculous it is, and the ending is incredible. One of the best images in any horror film this year. And it also has something else that's very popular in films this year in general, a fantastic score with many homages to Goblin. Yeah, it's the vibes. If you love the 70s horror vibes, you need to see Immaculate.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Immaculate. I'm going to be honest with you, not in my top 20.
Not in that's what wasn't in your top 20.
I did think, and this is one of the things where it's my top 20, and I can say whenever I want. Whereas I did think it was a better film than some of the films I had in my top 20. But it's about the vibes. Yes. And I thought, you know what, I wanted to have Slay in my top 20, so it just missed out.
Yeah.
But I fully recommend watching that if you're a horror fan. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was campy when it needed to be as well, which, you know, I love that. but felt very, very Italian.
Yeah. It's Suspiria with nuns and pregnancy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not a recommendation, then I don't know what is. In at number 16
16
for Chris.
is In a Violent Nature.
There we go. And number 16 for me is, speaking of the vibes, Oddity.
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 Oh, nice.
Is it in your top 20?
It is, yes.
Oddity
I really enjoyed Oddity.
is a film that I can tell you now, because I always, you've heard me say this many times, I think saying whether a film is scary or not is always a pointless critique because it's subjective. But I'm telling you right now, this is one of the scariest films this year, and I was creeped out after watching this.
It was a nice little surprise, I thought, because I wasn't expecting much from it. But it was certainly creepy. Yeah, I'm struggling to remember why it was creepy, but I remember it being creepy.
It was creepy because of the...
I remember really enjoying it, and I put it on my list, but in my head, it's just... This is why I should start writing reviews on Letterboxd.
Let's talk about the one... I'm just going to tell you, the wooden man.
Oh, yes, of
the
course.
wooden man
yes,
sat
yes.
at that table with his mouth open.
Uh-huh.
It's fucking terrifying. And there are so many well-timed jump scares in this film.
Oh, and like real twists and turns as
Loads
well.
of twists
that I
and
really liked.
turns.
It's all coming back to me.
Thank you, Celine.
Thank you, Celine. It's all coming back to me now.
Again, talking of endings, the final shot of this film made me jump more than anything else did in any film this year. Gwilym Lee is so good in his role as the husband, who is so unlikable. Caroline Menton's very good as his girlfriend. But Carolyn Bracken is the scene stealer here, as Darcy and her twin sister Danny. She's given Tilda Swinton. She's a camp medium, and I was just living for it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed her in You're Not My Mother as well. So I like to see her go on to big things. I mean, this was a Shudder film, wasn't it?
It was a Shudder film.
It seemed like it had a bit of a budget to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, really looking forward to what Damien McCarthy and the cast do in the future, because this was a hell of a good horror film.
Yeah.
Yes, and I remember it now. I do apologise. I was getting a little confused. This was the Irish one, wasn't it? Yes.
It was the Irish one.
Yes.
In at number 15 for me is Late Night with the Devil. So in at number 15 for Chris is...
Oddity.
There we go. So on to number 14.
Heretic.
There we go.
Hugh Grant makes his comeback.
He does, as Jar Jar Binks.
I say comeback. I don't... Did he leave us?
Has he ever done a horror film?
Well, he was in Wonka.
Is that a horror film?
Yeah, I mean, that was his role.
His role was...
Has Hugh Grant ever been in a horror film? Yes, he has. And he says, I saw an interview with him, he says it's his best film. Lair of the White One.
Oh, is that really... Is he in that film? Oh, wow.
He's the main guy in that film.
Well, I hope he's as good as he is in Heretic. Because we could realistically be looking at Hugh Grant Oscar nomination for a horror film here.
Yeah. He was, and this isn't to take anything away from the other leads, but I thought he was definitely the highlight in this. And it's one of those films where it's whether you laugh at it or you're scared by it is sort of it's on one roll.
Yeah.
It was Hugh Grant's job to make this a horror film, because at times it could have been a little silly, little ridiculous, if he wasn't good in the role.
Yeah.
But he was sufficiently, even more than sufficiently, creepy.
Yeah.
Scary. But also, you want to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
You were never on his side, and I think that is why the film was so good.
Yeah. Another one with so many great twists and turns. And again, you know, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East also
Absolutely.
are also so good here. Really an ending that gets you thinking about what exactly it means. But yeah, again, you know, so much of this does rely on Hugh Grant's great performance, and it's as intense as it is because of him.
Yeah.
But also darkly funny.
And I'm not saying that the two films are on the same level, but it's like in Silence of the Lambs. If Anthony Hopkins was shit,
Yeah.
then it would completely... The rest of the film would completely fall apart.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, we didn't know Hugh Grant had the capabilities to do this.
No.
You watch a few of his interviews and then you realise, oh, okay, this was all...
Didn't have to do much acting.
Yeah. Grumpy old man. Okay.
It also has a fair bit to say about religion as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like some really interesting stuff. It's as good as it is, not just because of Hugh Grant's performance, but also because it's clever.
Yes.
And it is actually clever. It's not one of those films that thinks it's clever, but isn't, like Strange Starlet. It is actually clever.
But it's clever because it actually... No, I don't want to start getting into all of this now. But it actually makes fun of people who think that they're clever.
Yeah. Yeah. And number 14 for me is the rumours, nastiness. You want to go there about her husband? It's rumours.
It's rumours, which isn't it isn't a traditional horror film, should we say? But it has many horror elements within it.
It's a horror comedy because
absolutely.
it's a zombie film.
Yeah, it is.
So it technically deserves to be in there.
Uh-huh.
This one was getting mixed reviews before we went to see it, so, you know, weren't sure what to expect, but I thought this was hilarious. And yeah, I think the comedy takes precedence over the horror, but it's still a horror film, so that's why it's here. And the horror elements, I can honestly tell you, I knew it was a zombie film, but if I don't think I had any idea where this was going or what the zombies were going to be doing.
No.
There's also a giant brain as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's Kate Blanchett showing us why she's one of the greatest actresses of all time.
Yeah.
But also Nikki Amuka Bird as the British Prime Minister.
So funny.
So funny. Roy Dupuis as the Canadian
Prime Minister. I think.
Yeah, so good. It's such a fantastic ensemble cast.
Charles Dance.
Yeah,
as
everyone.
the American president. Hilarious.
It's one of those ensemble casts where everyone gets a standout moment throughout, and they fully commit to it. Everything that's going on around them is so fucking weird, but they fully commit and take it so seriously, and that's why it's so funny. The dry wit is hilarious. And the political satire is just so fucking funny.
It's very much my sense of humour. Very dry, and it's very political, which I think could put people off. I don't think it's a film for everyone, but it was a film for me. I thought it was absolutely laugh out loud, hilariously funny.
Yeah.
And really stupid.
Yeah.
But so clever as well. I really loved it.
Yeah. If you want a film that is there to deliver the message that politicians are fucking idiots, Room is your film.
Room is.
Number 13.
Oh, and lucky for some.
For me, it's Your Monster.
Oh, nice. For me, it's lucky for First Omen.
That is my number 12.
Oh.
So, The First Omen, as we mentioned earlier, a film that never should have been this fucking good.
No.
Nunsploitation is back. And it's better than ever.
Better than ever.
After Poor Body tried her best with weak scripts, with The Nun 1 and 2, people have taken nuns and are actually doing something with them in horror films.
Poor Bonnie.
And The First Omen is... It's just fucking incredible. It's so fucking good. It takes a lot from Possession. But again, takes a lot from Suspiria and Rosemary's Baby, like Immaculate did. And what you get here is something that is just so dark, but also so camp and so fun as well, and comes very close to being as good as the original Omen.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sounds like someone else does too. But yeah, it's another sort of throwback to 70s Italian, I felt. I thought it was very over the top at times and therefore quite camp. I don't know. It was just a really great horror film.
Yeah.
And I was so surprised because it shouldn't have been.
But what's also surprising is the fact that it's a prequel, yet I was gripped and actually felt like I didn't know what was going to happen. That's rare. Because with prequels, there's always the danger of knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You go into this film, you know Damien's going to be born. You know that's how this film's going to end. There's no other way about it. It's not a revisionist film. This film has to end with Damien being born. That's not a spoiler. If you know what the Omen is, that's what it is.
Yeah.
The way it went about it, there were so many unpredictable twists and turns that had me forgetting it was a prequel. It's only until that ending where I was like, oh shit, yeah, no, of course. This is where we had to be.
Yeah.
But there's so many great things along the way, and I think it really benefits from having such a great lead character, with one of my favourite performances of the year by now Tiger Free. She really is phenomenal as Margaret in the lead role. There is a scene where she recreates the subway scene from Possession, and it's so cunty.
Yeah, it wears its inspirations on its sleeve, and I think it's very. It's exploitation cinema, really, and I mean that's what we love. That's what we love in horror film. It's over the top and ridiculous, and sometimes that's all you want. But I think there's another message there, but I wasn't necessarily looking for that.
No,
maybe next time.
Yeah. But I think there are messages there to be found. You're absolutely right. And any good horror film can do that. But yeah, really, really great stuff. And then at number 12 for Chris is
Red Rooms.
Ooh,
another surprise.
Yeah,
surprisingly good film.
Again, not horror in the traditional sense.
No.
But fucking horrific.
Yeah, really, very, very dark film. I don't want to give too much away because it's.
Let's talk about the very basic premise of this film.
Yeah, it is
about a model.
Turns.
Yeah, it's about a model who is obsessed with a high-profile murder trial, and she meets a friend who is also obsessed with a high-profile murder trial.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, a big chunk of this film is dedicated to being a courtroom drama.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it is dedicated to that obsession. And I think that's what we can say without it getting into, spoiler territory.
Yeah.
But obviously with a premise like that, it touches on true crime and people's obsessions with true crime and the way they kind of romanticize it, and when is going too far.
When do we start forgetting that these are real people and real lives?
Yeah. And, we mentioned a lot of great performances. I think some of the best performances of this year have been within the horror genre, and it's absolutely the case here. Juliette Garepi and Laurie Babin, both of them really deliver powerhouse performances here. But also Maxwell McCabe Locus, who plays the killer in question. Very small role. We only get to see him in court, but his physical performance was just so fucking creepy. It's just, it really is a fantastic film. Really great cinematography, particularly in one scene that shows you a certain thing while she hears something different, and it's one of the most effective scenes in any film this year.
Yeah, very intense at times. Very intense. quite heavy at times
Yeah, no,
too.
absolutely.
It's not a party film.
No.
But it does the horror very well.
Yes.
If that's what you're looking for.
Yeah. And at number 11 for me is Heretic.
In at number 11 for me is... Oh, it wants to be let into my top 10, but unfortunately not. It's Longlegs.
That's let into my top 10. I let him in now.
Let him in now. Your top 10 now.
And it can be nice.
It can be nice.
Yeah, I mean, because if you don't, he's going to come back as many times as he likes.
Yes, so it's Vicky Gunvalson herself. It's Longlegs.
Rest in peace, my Twitter.
Yes. That was meant to be a hit tweet. Was it a hit tweet?
It was a hit tweet.
Oh, it was a hit tweet.
It was my biggest tweet. Yeah.
It was.
Yes, Oz Perkins doing his dad proud.
Yeah, another one where we were like, oh, I'm really looking forward to this. And then we kind of got fed up of the trailer and everything. And it finally came out. We were like, wow, well done.
Yeah.
Really, really... I thought I was over Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I'm back on board with Nicolas Cage.
The more we watch of Nicolas Cage, I don't think Nicolas Cage is the problem. I think it's
No.
the fans that kind of ruin it.
Do you think it's...
The people who are just like, oh, isn't he silly? And I mean, he's in a film that's made it... He's in multiple films in my top 150. I mean, his performance in Moonstruck was really a work of genius. And I think... I mean, his performance in Pig, I think Longlegs might be his best performance.
It's a very effective performance.
Yeah.
It does what it sets out to do extremely well. It is terrifying. Mm-hmm. It is unsettling.
Yeah.
I love... My favourite film of all time, no secret, is Silence of the Lambs. And this is very akin to that in many ways. Takes it further in certain directions. But I thought it did it really well. I thought it did it very effectively. I enjoyed the lead performances. I thought it looked fantastic. And it kept me on the edge of my seat. It was a very, very good film.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's definitely modelled after Silence of the Lambs. So many shots are recreated here. Michael Monroe's performance is very... She's definitely going for Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs.
Which is great. I fully believe that if you're going to take inspiration from a film, it's not a remake. It's not. I don't think it's stealing necessarily. I don't think it's a rip-off is the word I'm looking for. I don't think it is. I just think it's inspired by it. So if you're going to do a serial killer film and an FBI film and that, well, you might as well be influenced by the greatest one ever made.
It's true. And one thing a lot of people don't talk about with this film that really deserves to be spoken about more is Alicia Witt's performance.
Yeah.
She still sings. She's
Love a bit of Alicia Witt.
So good in this.
Yes.
Really, some really bold choices are made with that character, and she does such a good job in that role. And yeah, it's again Michael Monroe's performance, one of the best of the year. The score is fantastic. It looks so good. People say I remember when this was released, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's the scariest film ever made." Not quite, but it is very, very good.
I was a bit like, oh, okay, one of them again. Like, audiences could not sit through this film because it was so scary. But it was very intense, edgy as seat stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, well done.
Yeah. And 11 was Heretic for me, as I mentioned. So, before we break into the top 10, here are my honourable mentions. Part 1, the horror genre. So for me, it's A Quiet Place Day 1, Terrifier 3, Infested, Sleep, Abigail, Milk and Cereal, Beetlejuice, and Trap. Because come on, guys, let's show a little more love to Josh Hartnett eating cake with his shirt off.
I completely agree. I think.
Apart from Terrified Freaks, it's in your top 20.
Yeah, no, of course. But it's worth a mention.
Yeah.
It's in my top 20. But I have got nothing to add to those because this year we have been, and we said it last year, but I think we've done even better this year. Very selective about the films that we've watched.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever went, apart from maybe Madam Web, I don't think I ever this year went into a film where I thought I'm definitely going to not think this is good. I'm definitely going to sit and watch a bad film. Mm-hmm. Yeah? There's been disappointments. Cuckoo and Strange Darling were disappointing. Yeah. But I had no reason to believe that they would be disappointing because I trusted the opinion of the people I follow on Letterboxd. You win some, you lose some. So the majority of the horror films we have watched this year, a case could be put forward to have them in the top 20.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously that and the Strangers that I dodged.
Oh, yes.
Which I think is great. I think that's fantastic. I'm so pleased that
you
we can
dodged
sit
it.
here. Yes. But I'm so pleased that we can sit here and say that we've watched some goddamn great horror films this year.
Absolutely.
You know, even something like Abigail that I may have been a little shady towards earlier. On Letterboxd, I give it 3.5.
Yeah.
Like, I had fun with that film. And how wonderful is that? You know, and these are great horror films that will last into the future. That people have spoken about, people have talked about, people have got involved with. You know, something like Longlegs was everywhere.
Yeah.
People were talking about it. People were really invested in it. And there's obviously getting into the top 10, even more so for some of them.
Yes. Yeah. I will say there is at least 5 films within this top 10 that I've never seen so many people talking about films as I have with these.
Love to see it.
You know, obviously social media could be a horrible place, but it could also be a very useful place when it comes to films like this, particularly with our number one.
Yes.
And I am saying our number one because there is no other option. If it's not your number one, then you're not on this podcast. A film like that, to reach the heights that it's reached, it's something special.
Yeah, and it's about fucking time as well.
Yeah.
It's about time people realise that horror film can be prestige. Yeah. And they talk about elevated horror and it's build and build and built. But I think some of these films some of them are fun, throwaway horror films, but some of them are prestige films.
Yeah.
Like, really, seriously. I mean it.
Good. So with that being said, let's get into our top 10. In at number 10 for me is Longlegs. So
in at number... Oh.
Yeah, for you.
So what? Sorry. I thought we were going alphabetical order.
Yeah, we are.
In at number 10 for me is Night Bitch.
Nice. And at number 9 for you is...
Smile 2.
And it's my number 9 as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do we often match? I don't think that happens too often.
Not as much as this.
I haven't gone back and listened to the older episodes. One thing that I think has changed this year is that we didn't do Fright Fest this year.
Yes.
As you may have noticed, we didn't do Fright Fest this year. So there's less choice involved in Fright Fest to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's maybe a little more risk involved in terms of great films and maybe not so great films. So that's probably why it's been so consistent across the board, really, as well.
Yeah, I mean, one film from the top 20 for both of us was included at Fright Fest.
Yeah, yeah.
Admittedly, it's the film of the year.
Yes.
That's... Yeah.
But Smile 2. Excuse me, I was just going on a slight tangent.
Smile 2. Smile was a surprise. I think that may have had the Almost Christmas God Award that year.
Yeah, probably.
Because the trailer was cheese and pickle, but the film was a cheese and ham toasty. And Smile 2 is a fucking steak dinner. Like,
steak and cheese.
this
Philly,
is, oh
Philly
my
melt.
god, Philly steak cheese sandwich. This is the shit. This is what Trap... It got an honourable mention, so I'm not being horrible, but it's what Trap wanted to be.
Yeah.
This is a horror film about a pop star done the right way.
It's such a weird film in the sense of it probably shouldn't have worked as well as it did. To be as creepy and scary and horror as it was, but then have quite a dark subject matter at times too, and then to have the campness of a Drew Barrymore cameo on the TV show, and then to have a complete song and dance on stage number as well. And there's so many bits of it where we're like, oh my god, this is our taste. This is what we love. And creepy to boot as well. Like, oh my god, well done. You know, really, really fantastic job to be able to juggle all of those together and make something that doesn't feel like a complete mess. It's really such an elevation on the first one, despite the first one being such a great horror film. Is there going to be a third one?
I have no idea.
I would assume so. Did it make money?
I think it did.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it made a little money off the soundtrack album that I was listening to on repeat.
Yeah, so many bangers on that soundtrack.
So many.
And Naomi Scott is just amazing here. Again, her vocal talents and her performance. I mean, it's a film about addiction, and it's a film about the pressure of fame, and the premise of the first Smile film lends itself to that so well. There's just so much you can do with it, and it's never the cheese and pickle, oh, what a creepy smile, here's a jump scare. I mean, it happens every now and then, but it's handled so well and used in such an effective way. It's just so good. Yeah, really. So, it's a film that feels like it's made for the gays. Let's be honest. Yeah, of course it is.
And the gays and the girls.
Yeah.
So you're onto a winner from there.
Yeah.
And it isn't obnoxiously Gen Z either.
No.
Which I thought maybe it was going to be. But yeah, I would very, very highly recommend. A really great film. Hence why it's in my top 10.
Yeah. On to number 8.
For me, it's Blink Twice.
Okay, that's higher up for me, but let's talk about it now.
Yeah. Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah.
Directorial debut.
Yes.
Excuse me. Really quite an intense horror film at times.
Yeah.
A black comedy at times. Incredibly unsettling.
Yeah.
Fantastic cast. Like, bringing some real fantastic actors together, giving great performances. It's got so many layers to it. Really, really interesting. It's got something interesting to say, as well as being a really creepy horror film. I think it's a real shame because I don't think it got the attention that it deserves.
Sadly not. This really should have been a bigger deal. I think one unique selling point for it is the fact that it actually starts with a trigger warning, which is such a thoughtful thing to do, and it really does make a big difference. Yeah, it's not giving away a spoiler or anything. It's just a fact that, you know, if you're someone who's suffered with things that are included in this film, you're going to be in for a horrific time. Yeah, and I think that's great. Horror has the ability to deal with serious themes and important subjects, you know. As we've always said on this podcast, if you're going to mention something, deal with it, and this film deals with it. Zoe Kravitz really, really does a fantastic job here. Things are set up so subtly, and it all comes to a head in such an over-the-top way, and it still manages to find a way to have fun every now and then. It's not a fun film as a whole, but it has its moments. And
it almost lures you into, despite the trigger warning at the beginning, it does almost lure you into a false sense of security at times. You know something's up, you know something's wrong.
Yeah.
But there are times where you're so invested in the characters, you kind of forget at times. I feel. But yeah, it was a really. It's, and we say it a lot, and we mean it every single time. It's why women making horror is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of story that only a woman could make.
Yeah.
And do it successfully.
Yeah, and men have tried to do it, and it's just been exploitative.
Yeah.
And that's something this film is not in the slightest. But yeah, highly recommend Blink Twice. And number 8 for me is a film that feels like it was made for me. It's Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh, nice.
Honestly, Carla Gugino dressed as a nurse, slapping Catherine Newton in full 80s goth attire, whilst in a pink house with an undead Cody from Zack and Cody hidden in a closet. Need I say any more?
It's the epitome of camp.
Yeah.
It's so campy. It takes classic horror and brings it... Well, it doesn't bring it to a modern... brings it to the 80s.
It's the 80s. It's the 80s.
But it in just a really kind of heartwarming kind of way. Again, it's another film that could well go on a comfort film list.
It's another film that also feels like it's modelled after one of your favourite films. It feels very Edward Scissorhands.
Yes.
But also, obviously, you know, this is from the writer of Jennifer's Body. Of course, the great Diablo Cody. And it feels like Jennifer's Body. It feels like it's in the same world as Jennifer's Body. It feels like it's continuing on straight from that. But it's absolutely one of those films where it's like, I wish I made this film. Like, this is absolutely everything I want in a film. The outfits, the horror, the camp value, the needle drop soundtrack, the script. It's, oh my god, it's just really fantastic. The other star of Abigail, Catherine Newton, is so good here. She's so good in that lead role. But Carla Gugino made it into my top 20 performances of the year. She just has a side role. She's just a stepmom.
Yeah.
But she steals so many scenes. She's just on another level to everyone else.
It's another one that feels tailor-made for the gays and the girls.
Yeah.
Again, it's not for everyone. It is high on camp. It's not a traditional horror. It's not scary at all, but it takes horror and creates a comedy for it. Yeah, the gothic nurse, the universal horror, and puts it through a 1989 filter.
Yeah.
With a little bit of strawberry switchblade. And it's just a fun time had by all, and I really enjoyed it. Zelda Williams as well is one to look out for. Yeah. Directorial debut for her.
Yeah.
So here's hoping that, because if I remember correctly, it didn't do massively successfully at the box office.
I feel like The Culprit is Dune 2.
Okay.
I feel like it was released on the exact same day as Dune 2. This naturally got the smaller screens at the cinema. I may be wrong. It may have been a different blockbuster, but I'm sure it was.
I think...
and then, yeah.
I think obviously we're here in the UK, but I think ultimately UK box office isn't as much as a decider as maybe we think sometimes. I think US box office is the big one.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it becomes a...
It was Dune 2, by the way.
Yeah.
Just confirmed it.
I hope it becomes a cult film and it doesn't derail Zelda Williams' career or Diablo Cody's really either.
I mean, you know, it's very much the same direction as Jennifer's Body. That was also... I mean, Lisa Frankenstein had some great marketing. Jennifer's Body had terrible marketing, and that's why it was such a flop. Whereas this was the other way around. Good marketing, but a terrible release date. Like, I don't know why you choose to release it on the same date as Dune Part 2. Come on.
Maybe they thought an alternative to... I mean...
Everyone was going to see
didn't,
that film.
Well, we weren't.
But we proudly went to see Lisa Frankenstein and only watched Dune 2 a day ago. Fine, by the way. Dune 2's fine. There's no Lisa Frankenstein. But, yeah. It's just everything you could want in a camp all time. If you haven't watched Lisa Frankenstein, what are you doing? Check it out. So.
What's next?
Number 7.
Number 7. Rumors.
Oh, number 7 for me is hello, MaXXXine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, MaXXXine concludes Ty West's X trilogy with my favourite one.
Okay, yes.
It's my favourite out of the 3.
Yeah, I agree.
I love what he's done here. I really love this trilogy so much. All 3 films are 5 stars for me. I love that each one is completely different to the other. X was your Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Pearl was your Wizard of Oz. And MaXXXine is your body double. And what an influence to have. But also not just body double. This is homicidal. This is hardcore. This is Crimes of Passion. This is Dress to Kill. This is Showgirls. It's all the best influences. But also... it's like Scream 3 if it was directed by Brian De Palma.
Yes. Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I absolutely adored MaXXXine. I thought it was fantastic. It has that energy about it that I loved from those sort of films in the 80s. Very Brian De Palma. I love Brian De Palma. Its references are the kind of references that I would make if I made a film.
Yeah.
It feels like the kind of film that I would make if I was making a film. I just loved it. It was really cunty. It was really funny at times. It was so over the top. It was never a dull moment or a boring moment. It was high camp. Really, really loved it. Loved the soundtrack. Score. I loved it. I thought it was actually it's one of those films that feels tailor-made for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Mia Goth is just phenomenal as this character.
Yeah.
And it brings her story to a decent end. But I would not be against seeing more of these films.
No.
Or even if Ty West did another trilogy of throwbacks like this, because it's proof that you can make films where you can see the influences, but they still feel so fresh for 2024. It's Satanic Panic / Giallo. Honestly, I don't know what more I could ask for from this film.
It's a fun film, just a real fun film, and I think, people struggled with it, maybe.
I think a lot of it, I think it's very much a case of it's a film to be enjoyed there for everyone, but there's a film to be loved there if you get the references.
Yeah, if that's your kind of thing,
especially with the humour as well.
Yeah, true.
So in at number 6 for me is a film we've already discussed. It's Red Rooms.
For me, it's Lisa Frankenstein.
In at number 5 is...
Oh, for me, I keep forgetting. In at number 5, I keep thinking you're going to go
5.
first. Top 5 is Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person.
Again, a film that I know this is your pick, but I'm just going to jump in there and say I fell in love with this film.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to let you carry on.
No. Continue.
Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time, but I'm going to let you continue.
Well, no. Yeah, really, really loved this film. Loved the atmosphere. I loved the story it told. I was very invested in a lot of the subjects it brought up, and I think it gave it an extra edge to it. I loved the style. I loved the performances. I loved how it sort of created a atmosphere throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you continue.
Well, I mean, it's yet another exciting directorial debut from Ariane Louise Sees. Really an exciting name to look out for because this is so bleak, but it walks the fine line between bleak and quirky in the same sort of way that the Addams Family does. This is a fucking dark film. The title alone tells you that, but it deals with it in such a way that is just so entertaining and so enjoyable. Also very tongue-in-cheek with what it does, because it's a comedy. It's absolutely a comedy, and it's so fucking funny. No matter how dark it gets, it's so funny. And there are important themes in it, being different and being alone. It's kind of like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but with Let the Right One In. Sacha and Paul, really great characters. Sarah Montpetit and Felix Antoine Bernard are both so good in these roles. Noemi O'Farrell as the aunt is hilarious. So camp. It looks stunning. The cinematography is beautiful. And the needle drops are so well placed, and Pierre-Philippe Coetis' score is really magnificent.
Really loved the score. The fringes were fringing.
Yeah,
heavy fringes.
If Lisa Frankenstein is a film that 2024 me would make, this is absolutely a film that me in 2008 would make. It's emo vampire horror comedy, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
In at number 6 for me, no, 5.
5.
Even we're at 5 now, aren't we?
5,
yeah. We are. In the top 5 for me, it's Alien Romulus. Whoever gave Fede Alvarez the Alien Romulus job, give yourself a pat on the back, because that's how you make a fucking Alien sequel.
This shouldn't... This wasn't one I was expecting great things from, but also I wasn't expecting bad. I was expecting to come out of this film, Alien Romulus, and say, "Oh, it was alright. That was good. I'm glad they didn't completely mess it up." But I thought they did an absolutely phenomenal job.
It really is, and we loved 3, Resurrection, and Prometheus. We didn't like Covenant, but we didn't hate it, did we? It was somewhere in the middle.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was like 2.5 or 3 stars. I can't remember.
It was the first film we watched at the cinema together.
It was.
So it's a special place in our hearts.
But this is the best one since Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you do it. Kaylee Spaney is fantastic in the lead role. David Johnson is even better. Again, another one of my favourite performances of the year. Playing the android of the film, really gets a juicy role, and he's so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's a film about the impact that AI having too much control can have, and that's a theme that's been dealt with in many areas this year, many films, many TV shows. Fucking even Wallace and Gromit are doing it, and it's important and timely message. But this film really does it so well, and it does it whilst making a really fun alien film with really fucking cool practical effects. There's a small bit of CGI added in here, and it's used. Some of the CGI is used in a really haunting way with an animatronic with a certain character, which I'm not going to talk about in case you haven't seen the film. but it's done in a way that really makes sense. And other CGI is placed here and there, but the practical effects, the xenomorphs, the face huggers, oh my god, like, this is phenomenal.
It's, at the end of the day, it's an alien film. Yeah?
Yeah.
The wheel has been invented. It's an alien film. We have Alien, we have Aliens. It was never going to be, in my opinion, better than Aliens.
No.
It was never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So don't even try.
Yeah.
Just take your love for Alien, the Alien franchise, and create something that's really fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
Have a little message on the side. Fantastic. Brilliant. Give the smart asses something to talk about, like us.
Yes.
But give me a fucking entertaining film, and that's what they did. It's horror. It's sci-fi. It's Alien. I just really... I couldn't fault it because it did exactly what I needed it to do and wanted it to do. I thought it was really just a great film.
Yep. Absolutely. And at number 4, for me, it's Blink Twice.
Oh, nice. And
What's
number 4
yours?
for me, it's Alien Romulus.
And
You think... I know this is potentially the last time we do it in this format. But I promise, in the future, if we ever do it again, I will not keep pausing every time you ask me. Can you
it adds suspense.
a little bit, but suspense should be a deliberate and...
Well, no one knew it wasn't deliberate until you said it.
But it's not. It's me getting a little confused as to whether I'm speaking or not.
Yes, you're speaking.
So number 4 is Alien Romulus. What was your
Yes.
number 4?
My number 4 was Blink Twice.
Oh, okay.
And number 3,
MaXXXine.
humanist vampire seeking consenting suicidal person. That means our top 2 has to be the same.
I do believe so.
I really hope so.
Yes.
The future of our relationship depends on it.
Yes.
And at number 2,
Is Strangers... Oh, no, excuse me. It's I Saw the TV Glow.
I saw the TV glow. Yeah, this blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. You know, Jane Schomburn, really impressed with We're All Going to the World's Fair. I thought that was a really creepy, thought-provoking film. So is this, but on another level.
It so expertly creates its own world.
Yeah.
It feels like something I've never seen before in film. It feels oddly familiar though. It's strange because it takes inspiration from the kind of shows I watched, like Are You Afraid of the Dark, the Nickelodeon shows.
Yeah.
And it's based around that to a certain degree. So it feels haunting because of that. Because it's like, oh, I feel like I know this, but it feels also completely new.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Actually, it's beautiful to look at. The soundtrack is perfection. Like, really wonderful music, and the performance is amazing. I think Justice Smith gives one of my favorite performances of the year, and it's enthralling and it's captivating, and it's intense at times as well. It is a horror film. That I forget its name, the moon guy. Incredibly creepy.
Yeah.
But in the way it was like, that could be a children's TV program.
Yeah.
Because children's TV programs are, at times, kind of fucking creepy.
Yeah.
When you really think about it.
Yeah. I mean, soundtrack, again, my favourite soundtrack of the year. Particularly, the score's good, but the needle drops are just made specifically for the film. They're all so fucking good. I could write an essay on this film. Look at my Letterboxd review; it pretty much is an essay. I mean, first and foremost, it's a trans film with powerful allegories.
Yes.
it kind of gets to the point where they're no longer allegories. It's very on the nose, but it needs to be on the nose. Being on the nose is not a bad thing sometimes, you know. And this is definitely one of those cases. It's obviously a personal film for the director and their lived experiences and love for 90s TV shows. But also, I found myself interpreting this film as being queer in general, regardless of where you fall within the spectrum of LGBTQIA+, as well as allegories for depression and feeling as though you don't belong in your home, in your hometown, and how, you know, one of the biggest horrors in life is the heteronormative lifestyle initially forced on you and continuously being forced on you despite knowing you're different. And this film captures that in such a powerful way that no other film has been able to do as well as this. It really is one of the most important, effective, and unsettling films I've seen this year, but also with that weird sense of comfort as well and nostalgia, like you said. It's really, really incredible. Daniel Deadwyler's in this, by the way. I really wish we were talking about Daniel Deadwyler more in general, because she is one of the best actresses working today. And she's fantastic here. But Bridget Lundy Payne, also fantastic. And again, Justice Smith, so fucking good. It looks amazing. And it's probably, although this is something that we'll be talking about in the next film we're talking about, which is showing a positive change, I really hope, a film like this shows how nonsensical award season is. Because for me, on every standpoint, this is a perfect film. Performances, technical, writing, directing, everything in this film is perfect. But you will not see this film anywhere near the Oscars.
No.
If I am wrong, then fuck me. I will hold my hand up and say I'm wrong, but I don't think I will be. It has some award shows have been taking it on, but the main ones are never going to touch this. No. And it's such a shame because it really does deserve all the attention it can get. And it's also interesting how there's so many different interpretations of it, not just through reviews I've read on Letterboxd, but also people I've spoken to. I think I may have spoken to, top of my head, including yourself, 3 or 4 people about this, and directly, and every single person has had a different take on it. And that's a sign of a great film.
Yeah. Universal appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. That is our number 2.
Yes.
And before we get down to business, here are my honourable mentions. Part 2, everything else. These are all the films in my top 20 that aren't horror films. Although this year, there's a question mark to some of these. I didn't include them because they're not in the official genres, but yeah. I'll mention the ones. The Beast, question mark.
Yeah.
It has one of the scariest things I've seen from any film this year.
Very true.
In there. Sing Sing. Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say horror, but this is definitely a genre film that borders on horror because of its tone. Like, you'd think it's a horror film when you just talk about it. Inside Out 2. Dee Dee. Kinds of Kindness. Had its moments. Thelma. The Room Next Door. A Different Man. Queer. Had its moments. In the third act, specifically. How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies. It is fucking horrifying how awful people can be. The Zone of Interest. Question mark. Fucking scary, disturbing, and intense. Poor Things. Question mark. Is born from a horror premise. Monster. The Wild Robot. Challengers. And my film of the year. The same as my podcast film of the year. A film technically remaking a horror film, but not a horror film. All of Us Strangers.
Yes.
And your honourable mentions are?
My honourable mentions. Now, I struggle with my film of the year, but I'll go from the top. So, Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
A Different Man.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fantastic. Perfect Days. I fucking loved that film. Challengers. Thelma. The Room. And Thelma was much better than it had any right to be.
It was.
Really fantastic. I'd love to see June Squibb nominated to the Oscars. The Wild Robot, The Room Next Door, Dee Dee. I'd love to see Joan Chen nominated at the Oscars.
Absolutely.
Inside Out 2, Love Lies Bleeding, Sing Sing. Also really, really enjoyed Memories of a Burning Body.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed Sound. Now, I finally learnt
Oh, he's redeeming himself.
how to pronounce this, but I really, really enjoyed soundtrack to a coup
Well done.
Fuck's sake. I fucked it up.
Try again.
Coup d'etat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, which I thought was phenomenal. Yeah, so those are my... there's so many. Again, like I said previously, so many great films this year.
Yeah.
I did not, on Letterboxd, I did not rate one single film from this year half a star.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single one. It's been a great year for films. And...
We're going to top it off with the greatest horror film of the year. For me, the greatest horror film of the decade so far. Truly a magnificent piece of work. That was at Fright Fest, the year we didn't go. Fucking gutted.
Mm-hmm.
It's a masterpiece. Everyone's talking about it. It is Coralie Forgy's The Substance.
Yes. The Substance.
The Substance. The moment that when we watched this in the cinema, again, like I said about Late Night with the Devil, there are a few cinema experiences that I cherish. This is absolutely one of them. We saw it early, as a screaming scene with Odeon, and I don't think anyone in that room knew where it was going from one scene to the next. Genius marketing. Doesn't give a single thing away at all. And I was gobsmacked. Really, really was. And I don't want to give spoilers away, but the third act of this film is one of the most unpredictable things I've ever seen.
It's difficult to go into great detail without potentially spoiling the film for anyone listening.
Yeah.
It goes in a direction that you're not expecting. I was expecting to love this film. I knew it. From the moment I heard the premise, from the moment I knew Demi Moore was going to be in it, from the moment I watched the trailer, I was like, this is my shit. This is it. I'm going to absolutely love this film, which is dangerous because it sets you up for disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
This was everything I thought it was going to be and more.
Yeah.
I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I think it's the number one reason why we, for this year, can sit here on this podcast and say that women make the best horror films.
Yeah.
I think it's when you look at our top 20, so many are female centered or female directed.
Yeah.
So many of the ones that we loved so much. And we say it so many times, and it rings true. And we're not saying that men make bad horror films, but I'm trying to make a point here.
Yeah.
That women should
women
have
chances.
more chances to make horror.
It's like...
because when they have a star like Demi Moore, who, you know, maybe her star wasn't as bright as it used to be, which is kind of the point of the film.
Yep.
But when a woman is given a budget, because I feel like there's quite a budget to it, given the chance to really tell the story that she wants to tell, to be as horrific as she wants to be within that telling, and be truly honest to her work without anyone interfering. And I hope there was no interference. It certainly doesn't seem like there was.
It doesn't seem that way.
This is her vision. This is her creation. This is women coming together and making a really fucking great horror film that says something. It says something. It's relatable, not just to women, but to everyone. There is something that you can get from this. And number one, it's really fucking entertaining.
Yeah.
It's so entertaining. It never stops. It's fairly long, in my opinion. I love a nice succinct 90-minute film. It's fairly long, but I am fucking invested throughout the whole thing. It looks phenomenal. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's acted perfectly. Demi Moore is exceptional in this film, and she deserves all the attention that I hope and wish that it's going to garner for her.
And so far,
And
it
has
been
far.
the case. And
what I'm saying is Academy Awards.
And honestly, it's wild that we're sitting here and realistically we can say that this looks like it's going to be nominated. Mm-hmm. It looks like it's going to happen. It looks like this is going to be another big horror year at the Oscars because of this film. Because there's so many categories that have been nominated in. I don't think we should, look past Margaret Qualley.
No.
Her performance as Sue. Oh my God. Genuinely, both are just flawless career best performances that are two of the best of the year, and they complement each other so well. You believe that these are the same people.
Yeah.
It's so easy to believe they are the same people. And their back and forths, it's so fucking camp.
It is camp.
This is a ridiculously camp film.
Yeah.
But it's also really touching and really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. There were moments within the film that I was like, oh my God, am I going to start welling up here? Like, this is really, in terms of the horror, yes, shocking, but also in terms of the human story.
Yeah.
The story of our protagonist.
Yeah.
It kind of got me, and I'm like, oh wow, Jesus. This is actually quite sad.
Yeah.
And to be able to do all of that is just, it's incredible. And not to feel overstuffed or overworked or... The film goes there.
Yeah.
It goes wild. It does go wild. But it doesn't feel like too much.
No.
And there is a real art to that. Mm-hmm. And just, it's really, really... exceptional filmmaking. Yeah. Amazing. And I'm so glad that people... And they've memed it. Mm-hmm. People have memed it, which is great. That's marketing 101 now.
It's a cultural reset.
Yeah, in 2024, that is marketing. It's going viral. It's people making TikToks. It's people... And sometimes having fun with the film. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as well. And when it's campy like this as well, you can do that. But that's how marketing works. And I really hope this is a stepping stone for everyone involved. Because they all did an amazing job.
Absolutely. It's a cultural reset. And I really think this is one of those films that we are going to be talking about for years and years and years and years to come. I think it's a horror milestone.
Yeah.
And... the reaction from the general public kind of agrees.
Yeah,
I think it definitely stands to reason this is one of the biggest horror films we've had in a while. And it makes me so happy that it's directed by a woman.
Yes.
Don't make the same mistake that you fucking idiots in Hollywood made with fucking Barbie, where it's like, oh, Barbie, directed by a woman, made by women, is one of the most successful films ever made. What should we do? Make more films about toys? No, come on. Give more body horror films to women now. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. Let's actually see a change happen. That's it. That's our 20 best horror films of 2024. One of the best years of horror we've had in a while, I'd say. And with that being said, with so many good films, we have more awards to give out.
Yes, awards round 2.
Yes. Biggest queen.
In a section we like to call awards round 2.
Yeah, and this is for horror films within the top 20 list that we just read out. So biggest queen, what's yours?
It's Elizabeth Sparkle. I really just... / Demi Moore. But I was really on her side.
Yeah.
And I really, really loved Elizabeth Sparkle.
It's a tie for me. Elizabeth Sparkle and Sue. Because Sue was undeniably cunty.
She was. She was a naughty girl, though.
She was.
Elizabeth Sparkle was the heart.
Let's see, bad pictures thriving.
Yeah.
Biggest gasp for me is the final misuse of the substance in the substance.
This is, and I really didn't want to just go the substance. I could easily have just gone.
I could have done it for all of these.
Yeah. Because I completely agree, like massively agree. I went with the In a Violent Nature kills.
Yeah.
I think because of what I was saying, the peaks and troughs, I think they were gasp worthy.
Well, I mean, one in particular, it certainly got a gasp out of me.
It certainly did, yes.
Best dialogue I've got, she has a cross pendant and she's wearing Elizabeth Taylor White Diamonds perfume and she's a bitch. Taffy in Lisa Frankenstein.
I got 2 words for best dialogue. Jurassic Fitness.
Yes. And that's camp. It may surprise you, but it's not gone to the substance. It's gone to Let Me In Now, the Nicolas Cage song from Longlegs.
That's quite
and how it became this camp entity that I could not escape.
I mean, that went viral as well, didn't it, actually? I went with the mere mention of Elizabeth Taylor White Diamonds perfume filled my heart with camp glee.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That may be the end of the Horror Cult Trash Over name, but still show us some love. Still talk to us on social media, Horror Cult Trash Over. For now, it's Horror Cult Trash Over on Facebook and Instagram, and Horror Cult Trash on Twitter, but it will be changing soon. We will still be Deadite Gaz92 on Letterboxd, Gazmo205 on Instagram.
I'm Chris Barker 823 on Instagram and Letterboxd.
And we will forever be Gasp Horrorfest across all social media as well. Look out for more exciting events coming up in the new year. Give us a rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, a like and follow on everything else, because we will be still in the same place and we need that love.
Yes, so this is just a reinvention. It's not an ending, it's a beginning for 2025. But yes, thank you everyone who listened.
Yes.
On Horror Cult Trash Over, the journey over the last 5 years.
Yes.
But, you know, as one door closes, another one opens. So don't leave us.
Yeah.
This isn't goodbye. This is see you soon.
Yes. Thank you for
cry.
Thank you for the many streams and downloads and any messages, comments, and if you want to listen to a thank you for all the guests, go back to our Cilla Black episode.
Oh my god, don't. Yeah, let's skip to the end.
Yes. We have been Horror Cult Trash Over, and we'll be back soon with a new name.
Bye for now.